This is Dumb Down Life number 124.
You're beginning to get the idea, Clark. This is the end. For both of us. We could have changed the world. Now look at us. I've become a political liability, and you're a joke. I want you to remember my hand at your throat. I want you to remember the man who beat you.
So have you got the script for the new Superman Batman film?
No. The second part of that was what was used as the introduction at Comic-Con for the new film that's going to be made. I say going to be made. I think they're still writing the script for it at the moment. And so I did a bit of digging to find out where it's from, and then downloaded the film, the animated film, to watch it and catch up a bit, because I know you're a bit of a Superman Batman fan, so you know a lot about it than I do.
I'm a lot more of a Batman fan than I am a Superman fan.
Right. Okay.
But that was from The Dark Knight Returns, wasn't it?
I guess it was from the actual printed comic rather than from the animated film, because that wasn't in the animated film that I watched.
It was the bit about remembering that I'm the man who beat you. That bit's in there, but the bit beforehand, the first passage you read, that's not in the animated film, is it?
No, nope. And I sort of did a tiny bit of reading up on it before watching it, and then watched it, and I thought, well, having done that tiny bit of reading, I knew everything that was in the film. There wasn't really any great surprises, and I wasn't really that impressed, and I kind of want my 3 hours back.
So when you say you did a little bit of reading, did you look at the Wikipedia article?
Did I look at the Wikipedia article? No.
That pretty much does give you a blow-for-blow account of the story. So yeah, if you read that, then you've seen the film. You've seen
I think it's probably fair to say that those people who are interested in seeing a Batman Superman film have probably seen the animated series and read all the cartoons, so we're not actually spoiling anything.
No.
And those people who haven't seen any of that stuff, well, what I'm wondering is how they're going to do this.
Well, they're not going to do The Dark Knight Returns.
They could, without having done the Justice League in between, really, could they?
Because, I mean, I personally think it's quite a good idea to do the film.
Yeah.
Because depending on what they do, and I'm fairly convinced they're not going to do The Dark Knight Returns, because what they're going to have to do for this film is to introduce a new Batman. Okay.
Yeah.
That will then set up the Justice League movie. So they can't do The Dark Knight Returns with Batman at 55 coming out of retirement, because they're introducing a new Batman.
Right.
So it's going, and I mean, I think it's a good idea, because they're going to have to reboot Batman. They're not going to let Batman disappear from the screens. They're going to keep making money off him. So the last thing anybody needs is a new origin story of Batman. It's been done 3 times on film. I would imagine there is a very, very small amount of people who are interested in these kind of films who don't know how Batman became Batman. So we really don't need to see that again. So just introduce a new Batman into somebody else's film, a Superman movie. I think that is actually quite a smart move, and it sets up the Justice League.
So you think it's going to be a Superman film with Batman in it rather than a Batman film with Superman in it?
No, it's going to be a 50-50, because they can't, or at least I wouldn't have thought that they could do a film with Batman in it where Batman isn't an equal top billing.
It's tricky because certainly the Dark Knight Returns was a Batman story that had a casual appearance of Batman, of Superman.
Yeah,
and that. Well, they couldn't do that with like you say, with the whole Super Bat logo. They couldn't really then sort of just make one of them a cameo in the other one's film.
No,
but it certainly does make sense that this would be the introduction of the Justice League. I mean, how in the comics does Batman get into the Justice League?
I don't know. I don't actually. The
thing is, recording right there. There's me thinking you were the expert.
No, I don't actually know that much about the Justice League. It wasn't a comic I ever read. Really, I mean, my three sort of ones I know a lot about in order are Batman, Spider-Man, Superman.
Right.
They're the three that I really do know. Now, the Justice League is essentially DC Comics Avengers.
Yep.
And I don't know how Batman I've always thought Batman was quite a weird fit for a superhero team.
A couple of the YouTube clips that I've seen of the other animated series, because I've not watched anything, I don't know anything about them, but this was the brushing up. Batman does seem to be the one that sits to the side.
Yeah.
He's always kind of, I don't want to play this game.
Well, Batman's whole...
what I don't like, says Batman, is the whole idea of you super friends all clubbing together and doing what the government says, because the government's not always right. So you need somebody to keep you in check, so I'll join. And that seems to be the way that...
he's the sort of the check and balance to make sure nothing goes out of control. Yeah, that makes more sense, because his whole...
He has a box with some kryptonite in it. He has information on how to disable each of them. And one of the clips that I actually saw was Superman saying, well, okay, if you've got a way of disabling all of us in the League, how were you going to be disabled? And Batman says, well, that's simple. The League.
Yeah.
And that's the way they sort of balance.
Because he's the only non-superpowered member, isn't he?
Yes, I guess so.
Well, you got Wonder Woman. She's got superpowers as such. You've got the Flash. You've got Superman. And you've got the Martian Manhunter. All of those... I think there's another one. I can't. Green Lantern. Green Lantern's in there as well.
Green Lantern and the Green Arrow.
Yeah, they've all got superpowers. Green Arrow hasn't. No, he's got.
Green Arrow's.
Is Green Arrow in the Justice League?
Yes, he's the Avengers. He's the Justice League version. Hawkeye, isn't he?
Yeah.
Who I can shoot arrows. It's like, really? Yep, I'm a billionaire who can shoot arrows. Okay, then. So yeah, it's. I'm not sure that. See, we spoke about this the other week. I let Superman, the new Superman movie, come and go. I'm not that interested in it.
There's a problem with Superman, and that is he's Superman.
Yeah.
So
they have to keep dragging out the kryptonite every film.
Yeah. Superman is essentially invulnerable to anything. He's got more power than anything in the galaxy, sort of thing. He can fly. He's got so many powers. The only way that you can write a story that I mean, this is why I don't think there's been a really, really good Superman movie. The only way you can threaten Superman is to take his powers away.
Yeah.
At which point he stops being Superman. So
they took his powers away by when Zorg and his mates turned up. They put him in the they some I can't remember the story now, but didn't they encourage him to give up his powers for Lois? Yeah. And then Lex Luthor seems to keep finding chunks of kryptonite. So I do like Superman because he's like iconic and the first real superhero, blah blah blah. But he must be incredibly difficult to write a decent story for, because the whole point of a story is the threat, the challenge, and there's not really much that challenges him. we might have to both go watch the new Superman together. We might have a different opinion on it after that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're listening to Dumbed Down Life.
Yeah, it's going to be a very difficult movie to make, but it kind of makes sense to make it.
Yeah, but they always mess with the canon. I mean, Bane wasn't a one story character. The Joker wasn't a one story character. No. But with films, they tend to make them that way.
Yeah, because I don't know why. I mean, you look at
they make them that way because they don't. Well,
but look at Star Wars. You got the same villain for the not in the bad 3, but in the original trilogy, you've got the same villain.
You've got the same villain throughout the entire 6.
Yeah, sort of. But I mean, come on, Star Wars, it's Darth Vader.
It's a story of Darth Vader because the bad guy is the Emperor.
Yes, it is, but it's semantics. Shut up. The first 3 films, the main baddie is Darth Vader. And they kept him through all 3 films until his redemption at the end. Why can't they do that with a superhero? I mean, they're kind of done it with Marvel because Loki turns up 2 or 3 times, doesn't he? But yeah, why kill the Joker after 1 film?
Because was he killed? I can't remember.
Well, no, but he was neutralised.
Sent to Arkham. Was he neutralised?
Yeah. I mean, it's debatable whether he would have come back for the 3rd film had Heath Ledger not died.
Yeah.
That's, one way of looking at it.
But the other thing is that Star Wars was written as a story, which he then split into 3, and then
do you honestly believe that?
The original, when you listen to the way that Scott Sigler talks, and you know that he writes these stories that are way beyond what you can put into a book.
Yeah.
And they end up splitting this story into 2 or 3 books, and then actually, when he's tidying up the first book to make it finish in itself, just in case he can't sell enough to make the other 2 books, the story then takes another twist. So I think that Star Wars was written as a much longer story. No, I don't think there was ever Ewoks and all that involved in his first concept, but I should imagine that the ice planet and the volcano planet from the original, from the prequels, those sort of things were in his grand plan originally.
See,
I would have thought that the story of Vader, I think that the story of Vader becoming Vader was in his mind originally.
I think it was in his backstory, not as in any intention to make it as part of a film. I don't think he ever intended to do it. And if you've listened to, I'm sure you have, you listened to interviews with Lucas. Years ago, when it was just the first 3, he said, the story's always been told from the point of view of the droids. They are the linchpin of the series. They hold it all together. And then as soon as the prequel comes out, he says, the story's always been about Darth Vader, and we're now telling the story of his fall, his rise and fall into becoming Darth. Completely changes his story. I've heard him talk so many different conflicting stories about his theories and reasonings and plans. I just think, do you know what, mate? I actually don't think you had one at all. You're just saying whatever you feel like saying at the time to sell more movies.
When you see some of the original Ralph McQuarrie,
Ralph McQuarrie, yeah,
and you see some of the pictures of Luke Skywalker, you get Luke Skywalker wearing that very similar mask to what Vader wears.
Well, yeah, I mean the original,
that sort of
the original draft. I did have the original draft once. And it was totally different, and Luke Skywalker was essentially a good Darth Vader. He was more machine than man and all of that, and the story kind of altered and shifted, but I certainly don't believe for 1 second that he had a grand plan of 3 movies telling this whole. I think he kind of he made the first movie. That's what he wanted to make. It did so well, he had to come up with something else. So he pulled on his backstory and embellished it from there. He probably did Empire and Jedi as a total written piece because of the way Empire finishes, because it doesn't finish. But the first story, Star Wars, is a self-contained story that had no need for any other form of embellishment or closure. It is a film that stands on its own, and I totally believe that that's all he had. And then he had a load of backstory and other stuff that when it was so successful, he decided to make another film or two out of.
You're listening to Dumbed Down Life.
So another piece of news that almost passed me by this week. It was only that I was on YouTube and this particular link came up saying live now on YouTube, and I just clicked on it. Was the Google Developers Conference. Did you watch any of that?
No.
Are you interested in that? Or are you an Apple fanboy?
Neither, really. I'm definitely not an Apple fanboy. And actually, I'm more and more becoming less of a fan.
More and more becoming less of a fan. Why are you becoming less of a fan?
Well, going back to something you were speaking, you sort of insinuated a couple of shows ago about me not being into or being as into technology as I let on. Yeah. I think you're kind of right. I mean, if you look at my phone right now, I think I've got a whole folder of apps that I don't want, that I can't take off because they're Apple's apps and you can't get rid of them. And about 3 apps other than that. I just don't use the stuff. So
rather than not being an Apple fanboy, is not being a tech fanboy.
I like technology, don't get me wrong. I love technology, but in an everyday usage point of view, I don't use the technology. I use it at work, I use it at home, but I don't use it out and about. I just don't feel the need to be sort of tweeting every step I take or playing games while I'm out and that. I just don't do it.
Well, the thing that I'm looking at with technology is that the better the technology is, the less you're aware of it. Similar to like special effects in films. Okay, Michael Bay does these films, and it's quite obvious they didn't really have a 50-foot tall robot in the San Francisco Bay. So it's quite obviously special effects, and you look at them and you giggle at them. But then when you watch some Stephen King films, you do not realise how much green screening and how much a camera that pans from the driver all the way out to show you the whole of America. Actually, that can't be done. So that must have been a special effect. It's not till afterwards that you think, oh yeah, that was done by computer. And the second ones are the cleverer bits. So with technology, I think likewise, if you can walk into a house and say, television start Game of Thrones, and it all goes, great. If you have to go in, turn on your computer, turn on your television, get all your cables plugged in, and it's technology, but you get the same result, but it's
no different to picking up your remote control and putting a DVD into a DVD player, is it?
Not far off. I mean, I say probably nearer the whole concept of using your Skybox and paying for a movie through that. But if you have to worry about installing and updating drivers, if you have to run a Apple product with an Apple TV with a Apple cable plugging you into your Apple speakers, it's gone wrong.
Yeah. It should be seamless rather than a hindrance, shouldn't it?
Yep. And this is one of the things that I like about Android and Google in general, is they do try and use open standards rather than stuff that's proprietary to them. Of course, bottom line, they know that if you're using Google systems, then they can throw commercials at you or charge for their service and make their money out of it. The fact that you didn't buy hardware from them, really, they don't care about. They don't necessarily want to have to do updates and hardware replacement and all that sort of thing. So they're all about selling the service. And the latest presentation they gave this week, two devices that they touted. The first was just a refresh of the Nexus 7, higher resolution, faster processor, sparklier sparkies, nothing really groundbreaking in that sort of area, and no real reason for me to upgrade from my original Nexus. But the next thing they've released is something called the Chromecast. Have you seen anything about this yet?
Yes.
For many years, people have been saying, when's the Google TV coming along? When are they going to work with one of the big TV manufacturers and put Chrome into a television? They haven't.
They have.
With this, with the Chromecast, they've put Google Chrome into any TV, into every TV, especially when it's only $35.
But this is their third attempt.
The Google Nexus Q was a laugh.
And they did Google TV as well, which was a set-top box, which fell flat on its face as well.
Yep. But this is the right way to do it. It's different in that it's not simply a system that you stream to. With this, it's a mobile phone that's running Android, and it uses a television as a screen.
Right, yeah.
And so if you are viewing something on your phone or on your tablet that's on YouTube or that's on one of the streaming systems, you then point the output of that to the television. Now, rather than streaming through your mobile device out to the television, what you're effectively doing is simply giving the URL, the internet address of that content that you're looking at to the dongle and saying, go download that. So you can then turn your phone off. The computer, the dongle is then doing all the work, and that's exactly what's needed.
So this is not for streaming content you've got stored on a PC, say, to your telly. This is for purely watching YouTube and Netflix and that kind of thing.
YouTube, Netflix, that kind of thing. However, technically there's no reason why you couldn't stream from your own media center that you're running. But what Google are looking at is, why would you want a media center if you've got content that's on the cloud? Something like Netflix, which is a ridiculously low monthly charge, as that gets more and more customers and more licenses, you will be able to go, I want to watch Back to the Future, therefore it's on Netflix. You don't need a multi-terabyte system at home that's got all these films on it anymore. You just don't need the physical. You don't need the physical disc. You don't need a hard disk that's got your films on it. The stuff will be in the cloud, and you're just going to rent the ability to view what you want when you want.
I mean, I can sort of counter that by saying I've got about 300 DVDs, most of which I've converted to digital, and they're stored in iTunes.
Yeah.
But in order to stream that to my telly, I need to go and spend £99 on an Apple TV box.
Not at all.
Yeah, you do, don't you?
No. You've got... where is this media at the moment?
It's on a hard drive on my desktop, which is in my bedroom.
So you can run a media server on your desktop, which you can then browse from any mobile device that's on your internal network, yes?
If you say so.
Well, this is... How do you currently use that? You simply set your computer and watch it on there, do you?
Yeah, it's in my bedroom, so I lie in my bed.
But you're using Microsoft Media Player or something like that. If you set up a media server, you will then be able to use essentially a web server. But it's only limited to your own network.
Right.
So you can then watch it on your mobile phone. You can watch it on your iPad, as if it was a web page.
I can do that anyway, because they're all Apple products, so they all talk to each other. It's getting it to stream onto my telly, which is the bit that's
Well, at the moment,
challenging me.
you would need an Apple TV to do that, wouldn't you?
I would, yeah. But at £99, then I'm not willing to spend that just so I can sit and watch it on my big telly.
Yeah. Have you got any actual proprietary Apple content? Have you bought the DRM stuff, or is this all DVDs?
Probably about 1% of it is purchased. The rest of it is ripped off my own collection.
Yeah, so if it's ripped off your own collection, you could run a media server, which you run on the PC, and then that presents a web page rather than a proprietary video content, a web page that you can watch your films on.
So next time you come up, you'll have to do that for me. So the going back to the Chromecast.
Yep.
So it is pretty much aimed at web streaming, really. Yes, you said that there's a way of doing it for your own stuff, but they're aiming for web streaming. So it's Netflix with bells and whistles, isn't it?
Yes, but it's not specifically Netflix with bells and whistles. It's anything that you can get via the web. So Netflix is just one brand. There's Love Film and...
I take it you'd still need to have a subscription to those services, wouldn't you?
You would, yes.
Yeah. It's not you buy this and you get Netflix in with it. You'd have to have a subscription to whatever streaming service there is.
But what's interesting is if you look at it, how much have you spent on your DVD collection?
Oh, yeah, hundreds and hundreds of pounds.
Hundreds and hundreds of pounds over the years. What's it worth now?
Next to nothing.
Next to nothing. So the idea is you spend £10, £15 a month on a subscription, and you've got access. Okay, right now you don't have access to all of those films, but you will eventually be able to get whatever you want. Really,
I must admit, I mean, I do actually subscribe to Netflix.
Right.
I mean, it's what, £5 a month, something like that. And since I've done that, I haven't had the compulsion to buy a DVD at all.
Yeah.
Because there's enough content. I mean, I've watched last week we were talking about Battlestar Galactica. That's how I'm watching it.
Yep.
Through Netflix. There's Dexter on there that I need to catch up on. There's most of the new reboot of Doctor Who.
Yep.
They're all on there, and I do. I would say that Netflix caters for 95% of my TV / movie watching.
Now you're currently watching that on a
iPad.
On the iPad.
I either watch it on the iPad or I do it through the PlayStation.
Right. So PlayStation for the television.
Yeah.
So okay, you have a PlayStation. That actually means that you could easily view your content that you're talking about on the PlayStation as well.
Well, I've tried that and it won't access the drive. It just comes up with.
I'll sort that out when we get up there. But
given I've got a web browser on the PlayStation.
Well, this is the thing. You would have to have going back to where I sort of started. You have got all the technology there to be able to do this, but you don't know how to.
Yeah.
What Google have come out with is this $35 plugin that will plug into your television. It's not a PlayStation, so you're not going to be having to faff around with controls and everything to get it to work. You are able to currently view Netflix on your iPad.
Yeah.
Netflix on the iPad will have a Chromecast button.
Yeah.
Even on the iPad.
It's kind of like the iPlay button, isn't it? AirPlay or whatever they call it.
Yeah. But the thing is, because it's not using any specific hardware, it's down to the content providers to decide whether they want to work with Google to put this in.
Yeah.
It's not up to Apple to decide whether they want to block it or not. For Apple to block it is going to mean that people won't want their hardware anymore either.
Yeah.
Because why would you want a tablet that can't talk to you You know, you've either got Apple who are forcing you to have an Apple TV to talk to. Actually, Google said, you know what? Rather than the £99 Apple TV, have this £35 dongle that you plug in, and it will stream from your Apple device. It will stream from an Android device. It will stream from your laptop, from your desktop, from your phone. And that's where it's sort of breaking the mold, in not enforcing any kind of brand loyalty, because at the end of the day, they're not interested in selling hardware.
No, they're interested in advertising.
Making you use their content providers and their advertising streams.
I mean, all they need to do is get Netflix to pay them a nominal license fee to use their technology. It's another way Netflix can sell their streaming service. So they pay Google X amount of pennies per subscriber, and that's where Google are making their money, isn't it?
I think that there's going to be sort of a tiered system whereby you can stream from a web page straight to the Chromecast, but I suspect that it won't be the high resolution.
Yeah.
And if you push the button and do it that way, it'll give you the high resolution. Or perhaps some of these Netflix and so forth, they won't run without, because I doubt it will use Flash. So if the websites use Flash, then it probably won't work with the...
YouTube are owned by Google, aren't they?
YouTube are, yes.
Yeah. So the fact that there's I've noticed, even with sort of non-commercial videos that are uploaded there, you get adverts now before the video plays to skip this ad, wait 5 seconds or whatever.
Yep.
So I mean, there's a source of advertising already that will be, if you're watching YouTube, that will be streamed through anyway, won't it?
Exactly.
So it's just more advertising for them that way. So I can see how it would work for them. I really can.
All I'm waiting for is them to sell them in the UK.
Is it US only?
It's US only at the moment.
Oh no.
Yes, I'm waiting for them to sell them in the UK and see how much $35 translates to in English money.
Well, if it's anything like Apple, it's £35.
£35, yeah.
You're listening to Dumbed Down Life.
To make things easier for you to find us, I have re-registered our old URL. You can now go to www.dumbeddownlife rather than having to remember the bloggers /this /that and /the other. Go there, check it out, and I hope you will be listening forevermore. Ta-ra!